Welcome back, everyone, to the deep dive. Today, we're gonna explore a really fascinating and surprisingly debated step in making whiskey,
Yeah.
malting.
Yeah.
We found this great piece on Whisky.dk, and honestly, even if you consider yourself a pretty seasoned whiskey lover, I think there's some real food for thought here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Even for those who think they know a lot about whiskey, there are some real nuggets of information in here.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, I think our mission today should be to really make sure we understand the essentials of malting. Like, why does it even matter?
Yeah.
What are some of the details that get whiskey fans like really talking and debating?
Right.
And really our goal is to make you sound like you really know what you're talking about when the subject of whiskey production comes up.
Yeah. Give you a little shortcut to whiskey knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. And to keep us grounded, we're going to look at all of this through the lens of single malt Scotch whiskey. And just as a real quick reminder for something to be called single malt Scotch, it has to be distilled in Scotland,
Right.
matured in oak casks there for at least 3 years, made entirely from malted barley,
Uh-huh.
and all from a single distillery.
Yeah.
So, it really started right at the
Yeah.
beginning.
The heart of it.
Yeah, the transformation of barley into malt. That's where our focus is today.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of malting. I mean, malting in Danish is malting.
Right.
So that's where that comes from.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
So at its heart,
Yeah.
malting is this carefully controlled process of essentially encouraging barley to sprout.
Uh-huh.
Almost like you're kind of gently waking it up. But the critical part is that we then stop this awakening
Yeah.
before that young plant uses up all the starch inside the grain, because that starch is that's what gets converted into the sugars that yeast can then turn into alcohol.
Right.
So really, it's the fuel for making whiskey.
It's like hitting the pause button.
Yeah.
It's
Gotcha.
just the right moment.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing to think how long humans have been doing this. The source we're looking at mentions Stone Age people.
Wow.
Like 5,000 to 10,000 years ago.
That's a long time.
We're already growing barley. And, we know the ancient Egyptians were using it for brewing beer.
Right.
So, it's really fundamental to the whole history of alcoholic drinks.
Yeah, it's interesting how malted barley is just this common thread through so many different alcoholic beverages.
Yeah.
I mean, even now, pretty much all whiskeys around the world use at least some malted barley in the mash to kick off that fermentation.
Yeah.
I think the main exception you'll find is 100% rye whiskey in the U.S.
Okay.
But barley just has this unique set of enzymes that get activated during the malting process that are key for breaking down those starches into the fermentable sugars.
I see.
The piece from Whisky.dk also mentions how the barley varieties in Scotland have kind of evolved over time.
Oh, really?
Moving from the older 4-row barley to the more common 2-row varieties we see today.
Okay.
And they even hinted at some possibilities with new barley strains that could give even higher sugar yields, which is pretty interesting to think about.
Wow. So even the barley itself is changing.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah. Well, and since we are talking about Scotch, there's this real emphasis on using Scottish barley, and the article gave some reasons why.
Right?
Apparently, the colder climate up north helps reduce pests.
Oh, interesting.
So farmers don't need to use as many pesticides, and then there's the really long daylight hours during the growing season.
Yeah, you don't often think about that.
Yeah, they use this analogy of sun-ripened strawberries having richer flavor.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe the longer sunlight is concentrating the flavors in the barley, too.
That makes sense.
It's a cool idea.
It is, and if you connect it to that broader idea of terroir,
Yeah.
you know how the environment influences the final product?
Uh-huh.
The choice of barley and where it's grown definitely plays a role, although it's a subject of constant debate among whiskey enthusiasts.
Yeah, and it's not just where it's grown, but also when it's harvested, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like they have to wait to the very, very last minute to make sure the grains are good and dry.
Yeah, to minimize the risk of mold.
Right.
Sometimes they'll even wait an extra day or two just to be sure.
Wow.
Of course, now we have modern technology to help with this.
Yeah.
Mechanical drying is used pretty widely to manage the moisture levels, but yeah, ensuring that barley is dry is really crucial because when we move into that malting stage,
Right.
we want controlled moisture. We don't want unwanted mold growing.
No, definitely not. Okay, so we've got the barley harvested.
Yeah.
And I thought it was interesting that a lot of distilleries these days are getting their barley from these specialist grain merchants.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Which makes sense, right? Because you've got consistent quality and you're not relying on just one farm.
Yep.
But I love that there are still some distilleries that are like, no middleman.
Yeah, that's great.
We're going straight to the source.
It really speaks to that sort of, you know, that tension that exists in traditional crafts
Yeah.
between the need for efficiency and consistency in a global market
Right.
versus, that more hands-on approach that some people really value.
And this idea of efficiency and consistency, it actually raises an interesting question about the barley itself.
Oh, okay.
Because we hear these different opinions on how much the actual variety of barley
Yeah.
impacts the final whiskey.
Right.
Some people say it doesn't really change the flavor that much.
Right.
But then the article mentions these conversations with stillmen, the distillers themselves,
Right.
who feel that the barley variety really does affect where they make that crucial middle cut
That's fascinating.
during distillation.
Yeah, it really highlights the level of detail
Yeah.
and those little nuances and the differing opinions within the industry.
Now, for those of us who aren't, experts in distillation,
Sure.
can you quickly explain what that middle cut is and why it matters so much for the final whiskey?
Yeah, of course. So during distillation, the alcohol vapor is collected in 3 stages.
Okay.
You have the foreshots, the heart or the middle cut, and then the feints.
Okay.
And the foreshots and the feints contain a lot of less desirable compounds. So the distiller carefully selects the heart,
Right.
that middle cut, which is the purest and most flavorful part of the distillation run. And that's what goes on to become the new make spirit that eventually matures into whiskey.
I see.
So the stillmen who say the barley variety is important, they're suggesting that the different compounds present in different barleys
Yeah.
actually influence when they identify and collect that ideal middle cut.
Interesting. Okay, so now we've got the barley harvested. Maybe it's come from a local farm, maybe from a merchant.
Right.
Now we're getting to the actual malting.
The malting process itself.
Yeah, the article talks about the traditional way of doing this, and it sounds incredibly physical.
Oh, it is. Yeah. So picture the barley arriving at the distillery.
Okay.
First, it gets sieved to remove any impurities, stones or broken grains.
Uh-huh.
And then it's steeped or soaked in the water for about 2 to 3 days.
Okay.
And the exact timing depends on things like the water temperature and how quickly that barley absorbs moisture.
Okay.
But this process increases the moisture content from about 12% up to about 45 to 50%.
Wow.
Which triggers the germination.
Wow. So it's really a big change.
Yeah, it's getting things going.
And then, we have this iconic image of whiskey making.
Yes.
The malting floor.
The malting floor.
The soaked barley is spread out on these huge floors.
In a layer about 15 centimeters thick.
Wow. And because the barley is germinating and creating heat,
right,
it has to be turned all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Day and night?
For about a week.
Really? Wow. That sounds like hard work.
It is. It's incredibly demanding work.
And what were the main risks if they didn't turn the barley constantly?
So the main risk is uneven temperatures and moisture levels.
Okay.
Within that barley gut.
Right.
If it's not turned properly, that barley in the middle can actually overheat.
Oh, wow.
Which could kill the embryo, or it could lead to the growth of mold.
Oh, yep.
Yeah, so consistent turning is really important to make sure that all the grains germinate evenly and prevent spoilage.
Okay.
At this stage, the barley is called green malt.
Okay.
Because of the little green shoot or a crispire that starts to appear.
I see.
And it's important to remember how rare this traditional floor malting is these days.
Yeah.
The Whisky.dk piece points out that only a handful of distilleries in Scotland.
Really?
I think Bowmore, Laphroaig, Belvaney, Springbank, and Highland Park are the only ones that still partially or fully malt their own barley.
Wow, that's a very select group.
It is a very select group.
And I guess it shows a dedication to a certain style and tradition.
Yeah, excellent.
And the article mentions that, a big benefit of malting their own barley is these distilleries have so much more control.
Much finer control.
Over the characteristics they want in their whiskey. They can really tailor it.
Exactly. They can create more peated expressions, less peated expressions. They have the flexibility.
I see. So the majority of distilleries then are getting their malted barley from these commercial maltings.
Right, from these big specialized factories that are set up to malt barley on a massive scale.
Uh-huh.
And they do so according to the very specific instructions that each distillery provides.
So it's kind of a custom order kind of thing?
Exactly. It's all about tailoring the malt to the specific needs of each distillery.
And the main reason to use these maltings is efficiency, right?
Efficiency is key.
Because it just increases production so much.
Yeah, it allows them to produce significantly more whiskey.
Which I guess, affects how much whiskey's available. And probably the price.
Right. It's that classic push and pull between the romantic ideal of tradition and the practical realities of a global market.
Yeah. I mean, how much of a difference in time are we talking about?
Oh, it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
So a distillery that malts their own barley is looking at about 14 days from when the barley arrives to when they can start distilling.
Okay.
But if they use a malting, it's more like 3 days.
Wow. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, it is.
So on-site malting is a big commitment.
It's a huge commitment of time, manpower, and resources.
Yeah, you need the space for this big malting floor
That
and
sounds
people to be constantly turning the barley.
Right, it's a labor of love.
And you can't do as much at once.
That's right.
So it makes sense to really compete, in the market today.
Yeah,
Most distilleries are using these commercial maltings.
absolutely. For most distilleries, it's a necessity.
Okay, so now we have this green malt
We do.
that's started to germinate
Yeah.
and, it's got all that starch in it.
Ready for the next stage?
What happens next?
So the next step is drying the green malt to stop that germination process.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting, especially if we're talking about peated whiskey.
Yeah.
So they'll spread the green malt over a perforated floor,
Okay.
and then they'll have a heat source and often smoke underneath,
Okay.
traditionally from peat.
So this is where the peat comes in.
This is it.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the early phases of drying, this is when they'll do the peat smoking.
Uh-huh.
They burn peat in a furnace or a kiln, and the smoky fumes will rise up through those perforations in the floor,
Wow.
coming into direct contact with the damp malted barley.
Okay.
And the longer that barley is exposed to the peat smoke, the more of those smoky compounds it absorbs,
I see.
which directly affects how smoky that final whiskey will be.
Wow. So the longer the smoke, the smokier the whiskey.
That's the general rule of thumb, yeah.
And peat was really the only fuel source they had in a lot of Scotland back in the day.
Historically, yeah, in many parts of Scotland, peat was the only readily available fuel source.
But then things changed, right?
Yes, with the expansion of the railways, coal became more widely available.
Okay.
So distilleries had another option for fuel,
I see.
and coal burns at a higher temperature,
Okay.
which many distilleries favored, particularly in the Speyside region,
Right.
which is known for those lighter, more floral whiskey.
Yeah.
So this shift towards using coal is actually part of how some of those less peated styles emerged, like the Glenlivet in the 1870s.
That's so interesting how, something like a change in fuel can totally change the character of the whiskey.
It's a great example of how these seemingly logistical changes
Yeah.
can have a profound impact on the flavor profile of a region's whiskey.
And of course, these days, many distilleries use, hot air.
Right, generated by various fuel sources without any peat smoke at all.
Right. So that's how we get those whiskeys with no smoky flavor.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about why the smoking is important, but can you remind us why this whole drying or kilning step is so important?
Yeah, so it's not just about halting the germination. It's also about reducing the moisture content of the malt down to a level that can be safely stored.
Right.
And while the heat does stop the enzyme activity that was happening during germination, the process has already broken down the cell walls of the barley, which makes the starch more accessible for that next stage mashing.
Right, where the starches are turned into sugars.
Exactly.
So it's all very carefully planned out.
It's a beautifully orchestrated process.
Okay, so let's talk more about this, Pete.
Okay.
What exactly is this stuff, and why does it give such a unique flavor to whiskey?
So peat is essentially acidic, decomposed vegetation.
Okay.
But what's really interesting is that its composition isn't uniform.
Oh.
It varies depending on where it's found.
Okay.
So inland peat is typically made up of mosses and roots, or heather and grasses. But if you go to coastal areas, particularly islands like Islay,
Right.
the peat can actually contain remnants of seaweed
Wow.
from periods when the sea levels were higher,
Okay.
and it absorbs salt from the sea air.
Oh, interesting.
So that's partly why you sometimes get those subtle salty notes in coastal whiskies.
Okay, so it's like a fingerprint of the local environment.
Yeah, it's a really cool example of terroir.
And peat bogs, what makes a peat bog?
So for peat to form, you need these specific environmental conditions.
Okay.
You need high rainfall, poor drainage, which keeps the vegetation waterlogged.
Uh-huh.
You need high soil acidity and a generally cold climate.
Okay.
And these conditions prevent the complete decomposition of the plant matter,
I see.
allowing these peat bogs to accumulate over thousands of years.
Really?
Some of them are incredibly old and deep,
Like how old?
like up to 10,000 years old and 9 meters deep.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
It's like a natural archive of the local ecosystem.
Yeah, it really is.
And today when they use peat in whiskey production, it's all very carefully measured and controlled, right?
Oh, absolutely.
They talk about the phenol content.
Yes, measured in parts per million or ppm.
Right, ppm. So what does that actually mean? Like how does that translate into smokiness?
So the article gives a good way to think about it.
Okay.
Lightly peated whiskeys will have a phenol level of around 1 to 5 ppm.
Okay.
Medium peated whiskeys are usually around 10 to 20 ppm.
Okay.
And heavily peated expressions are anywhere from 30 to 50 ppm or even higher.
So higher ppm means smokier whiskey.
Exactly.
Okay.
They give some good examples. A typical Speyside distillery might peat their barley to around 2 p.m.
Okay.
Whereas Highland Park, with its signature smoky sweetness,
Yeah.
is around 20 ppm.
Oh, okay.
Flynelish, which has a more coastal, slightly waxy character,
Uh-huh.
is around 30 ppm.
Okay.
And then you have Ardbeg, which is traditionally known as one of the most heavily peated Islay whiskeys,
Yeah.
clocking in at about 55 ppm.
Wow. So you can really get a huge range of flavors.
Oh, absolutely.
Just from that one step in the malting process.
Yeah, it's remarkable how much influence that one step has.
And it sounds like where peated whiskey is made has changed over time.
It has since World War II. Many distilleries in the Highlands have shifted to producing less peated whiskey.
Oh, interesting.
So that's a big reason why the islands, particularly Islay,
Right.
have become the main source for those really intensely peated whiskeys.
But the article also had some really surprising examples of extreme peating
Oh, yeah.
from Bruichladdich.
Yeah, they did a whiskey in 2003 that had a phenol level of 80.5 ppm.
Wow.
And then they went on to make one that was even more peated than that.
That's crazy.
It's wild. The article talks about the smell in the warehouses at the old Octomore distillery.
Really?
In Port Charlotte, the whole building reeked of this intense burnt vegetation.
Wow, you can almost smell it from here.
It really drives home just how potent peat can be.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on malting, what are the key things you want our listeners to remember?
Well, I hope everyone has a better understanding now of the whole malting process.
Yeah.
From soaking the barley to kilning it.
Right.
We talked about the balance between traditional methods and modern efficiency. And the
Right.
crucial role of barley itself.
Yeah.
Its history, the different varieties, the debate about how much it affects the flavor.
Uh-huh.
And of course, we had to delve into the fascinating world of peat,
Yeah.
where it comes from its different compositions, the huge impact it has on whiskey.
Right. And all those regional differences.
Exactly.
It's really amazing how this one step
Yeah.
seems so simple,
Right.
actually has so many nuance
So much complexity.
and really shapes the whiskey so much.
That's foundational.
Yeah. And I think this raises a really interesting question for our listeners to think about.
Okay, I like it.
You know, we've talked about this tension between tradition and efficiency
Right.
and how it plays out in whiskey production.
Right.
So how might future innovations in barley or in malting
Yeah.
change the whiskey we drink?
That's a great question to ponder.
You know, will we have new flavors? Will whiskey become more or less available?
Yeah.
I think it's something worth thinking about next time you're enjoying a drum.
Absolutely. Cheers to that.
Cheers.